Hello! I have here a tiny model of one of NASA's Mars Exploration Rovers. I wanted to make a video about how I built it and use that as an excuse to talk about some of the history of these incredible rovers. Let's jump right in. So I picked up this kit when I was visiting Jodrell Bank earlier this year. I'd seen these kinds of models on the shelves of a few different places over the years, but never actually tried one before, so I was excited to give this one a go. This particular one represents the Mars Exploration Rover's Spirit and Opportunity. The kit itself comes as two sheets of laser-cut steel, with parts that you cut from the frame and bend into shape. It has small tabs on each component that you fold and slot into place, holding the model together without using glue. I'm using my standard hobby knife to remove parts from the frame, but really I think you'd be better off with some proper clippers designed for working with steel. The hobby knife did do the job, but I had to replace the blade partway through as it was quickly blunted. I also found that a steel ruler was helpful for bending large components in a clean straight line. The kit starts by building the main body of the rover. When building Spirit and Opportunity in real life, NASA only had a short amount of time between mission approval and the target launch date, so they reused previous ideas where possible. In this case, design elements like the 6 wheels, rocker bogie suspension, airbag landing system and radioisotope heater system were all reused from the 1997 Pathfinder mission, the first rover to operate on the surface of Mars. However, while the Pathfinder mission was a brilliant proof of concept, it was small and limited by its dependence on a base camp. The Mars were to be true explorers, twice the height, 17 times the mass, and able to carry everything they needed with them. They had the potential to rove further than anything had roved before. I'm really impressed by the level of detail in this kit. I was expecting most of it to be fairly simple shapes with details etched onto them, but there's a lot of components that are separately assembled and then added onto the main body. For folding over the tabs on each piece, I initially tried to do it all with tweezers. I quickly found that using my nails could be more effective though, especially in areas that weren't so difficult to reach. Here we're working on the rover's robotic arm. This arm carried several tools and instruments that the rover could use to get right up to and learn about the Martian environment. In total, Spirit and Opportunity each carried 5 main scientific instruments: a panoramic camera, thermal emission spectrometer and microscopic imager from the US, and a Morse-Bow spectrometer and alpha particle X-ray spectrometer from the EU. Together, these instruments uncovered incredible things about Mars's history and geology, including that it was once awash with liquid water and could even have supported life. Next was starting on the solar arrays. Once unfurled, these provided power to the Mars systems and allowed them to go about their business without worrying about relying on a limited fuel supply. At least, that was the plan originally. Spirit and Opportunity were both exploring for so long past their original goal that dust and dirt began to build up and actually started covering the solar arrays. With no human nearby to dust them off, more and more of the surface was being blocked from the light, and so it began to limit the amount of power they could generate. This wasn't the end of the rovers though. Mars gets periodic storms, and although the thin atmosphere limits how strong these storms can be, they were frequently just enough to blow excess dust off the solar arrays. With some careful power management, the rovers could still get enough energy to continue their missions. Where multiple pieces were needed for a single step, I like to cut them out at the same time but line them up in numerical order at the top of my cutting mat. That way I could more easily remember which piece was which number, even though it wasn't on the sprue anymore. Here we're assembling the panoramic and navigational cameras, used by the rover teams back on Earth to collect data and guide the rovers as they explored. These cameras could take highly detailed stereoscopic images of the Martian surface, around and in front of the rovers, but even so, navigation wasn't a simple task. Mars is such a long way from Earth that, even with signals travelling at the speed of light, it could take almost half an hour for an instruction from Earth to reach the rovers, and another half an hour for the response to come back. To compensate for this, Spirit and Opportunity were equipped to drive autonomously for parts of their journey. This was considered risky though. If a rover drove itself into a soft patch of sand and became stuck, that would be mission over. So for difficult areas, the control teams would come up with a safe route and upload that route to the rover, with AutoNav only playing a small part. For safer areas, the robots were allowed to navigate themselves, in one case covering 270 meters over the course of 2 Martian days. That might not sound like a lot to you and I, but for a robot literally driving on the surface of another world, it was record-breaking. It was far from the only record these rovers broke, of course. Spirit and Opportunity were only expected to operate for around 92 Earth days each, but Spirit rode for more than 6 years, and Opportunity was going for 14. Together they covered more than 50 kilometers of ground, exploring different regions and sending back more data than anyone could have hoped for. One of my favourite quirks of these missions was that they made use of a technique known as lithob breaking. The word is based on the term aerobraking, where the atmosphere is used to slow down a spacecraft, but for lithob breaking you instead use the planet's lithosphere. For us non-geologists, the lithosphere is a planet's rocky outer layer, or crust, so lithob breaking means you've slowed down by crashing into the ground. It was originally intended as a kind of joking term, but has increasingly been used to describe actual landing methods, such as the inflatable airbags that Spirit and Opportunity used to survive their drop from high altitude. As I was building this kit, I noticed it seemed to be increasing in complexity as it went on. I think it does a good job of easing you in though, starting off with the simpler shapes to get you used to the concept of how it all works, before giving you the more challenging bits. Sections that needed to be round were especially difficult, though I found that using a cylinder of approximately the right size, such as a paintbrush or tool handle, could help a lot. I hadn't realised at the time of buying, but this is apparently one of the more complicated kits they sell. Still, it was fun pushing my skills and trying techniques I hadn't used before. right at the end, I finally made my first real mistake with this kit. There have been a few points where I'd had to undo and redo certain steps where I'd either misunderstood the instructions or not quite folded it well enough. But on the last component I accidentally folded it the wrong way entirely and snapped part of it off. It wasn't too difficult to just use a bit of CA glue to hold it in place, but it was frustrating that I'd slipped up right on the final detail. Ah well, it's not visible on the finished piece at least. I'll have to be more careful though if I make another one of these kits in the future. For now though, here is the finished Mars Exploration Rover. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. This is my first attempt at making a video for YouTube, and I believe I learned a lot throughout it, but if there's any ideas or suggestions for how I can improve or make better videos in the future, please let me know down in the comments. Mostly though, I just hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.